We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chronographs here, all in chronological order with chronograph obsessed Balazs Ferenczi. You've seen one on the channel a bunch, but now we get to pull back the curtain on your collection and the watches that you're obsessed with.
Yeah, some.
I guess my first question is why chronographs?
I think from the earliest time I remember I was interested in watches. I always liked the chronograph functionality. It's a button you can push, that something happens on the dial that kind of you control. It's a bit more complicated than a regular time-only watch. Some people collect divers, others collect GMTs, moon phases, whatever. For me, it was always a chronograph for whatever reason, and the movements and now the history behind them and so on. So
yeah, this is just a portion of your total collection and total chronograph collection. We have some that you guys are going to recognize and some you definitely haven't seen before, some like deeper cuts that only the real chronograph heads will know, or maybe even not. But that's not your whole collection. What do you got on the rest today?
Yeah, I have a 1675. This is
Rolex GMT Master.
Rolex GMT Master,
Classic Pepsi.
4-digit from the late 60s. I have this watch for many, many years now, close to a decade, I guess. I never had a Rolex until this one, and I thought that the first Rolex, or the only Rolex, should be a GMT, and I wanted to go for a vintage GMT. I wanted to go for a 4-digit GMT and the Pepsi. And so I got this one, and really up until like a couple of years ago, I had no other Rolex, and I had no real interest in getting anything else other than this one. Then I had a few Datejust here and there, and then last year I bought a Submariner, again a 4-digit, very similar in time.
Yeah, the 5513.
5513, which was some early 70s. This is the late 60s. I would have loved to have the same, like 1967 5513, but the price was just way too much for me.
I think you did okay.
Yeah, it was
what you got.
It's fine, yeah. But so I really like this era. I like the size. I like how it feels on the wrist. I like how different the sub is compared to this one. Mm-hmm. This is a much thinner, much lighter.
Monochromatic versus, the classic blue and red bezel.
Yeah, exactly.
Two classics, but different classics, I would say.
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. It's a beautiful watch. I love it. I don't wear it as often as I used to, but I every once in a while.
Well, you have a lot of competition between what's on the table and what's at home.
Absolutely.
This is a Certina blue ribbon. It's just a fun, funky, got it on Chrono 24 for nothing. Very angular. It's got circular brushing on the top half and bottom half of the dial for this kind of mirrored effect. It's incredibly shiny, especially under these lights. But it's fun. It makes me happy.
It's a cool watch, yeah.
Yeah, I love a slim 70s moment.
And it's like a octagonal? Two?
Yeah, it's octagonal. I used to have 3 octagonal watches. Now we only have 2. Nets is the Royal Oak.
You need another one, yeah.
We'll see about that.
Third time the charm.
Let's get to the watches we have on the table. We're going to go in chronological order, starting in the year.
1948 was the year when Angelus released the Chronodatolux.
Okay.
The Chronodatolux was only made for a few years. There aren't many examples around, so I'm pretty sure it's only a couple of years while they produced this.
Yeah, pretty strong condition for the age.
Yeah, so this one you may have not seen. You've probably seen the rest, but this is a new pickup, as they say.
Yeah.
So what you need to know about the watch is it's a very small case. It's a 34 millimeter case, because the movement that is based on the 25X movement is also much smaller than the previous one, the 21X movement family. So 250 was a chronograph caliber, and this is the 252, which is a chronograph with a double date, so a date and a month, big date and a month, and a moon phase.
Yeah. I'm afraid to even touch this thing.
You can. You can just start the chronograph.
Okay, so still functional and everything.
Yeah.
There are watches pushing 80 years old that are highly complicated, but still run as intended.
Absolutely. I mean, it still works. It works beautifully. Of course, I don't suggest that if you get a watch like this, you keep the chronograph running. Yeah. Maybe not a good idea, but it's a beautiful piece. At the time, that was the creme de la creme of in-house Angelus watches. So they had the Dato 12, which had the bit date only. Then they had the 250, which was the chronograph. Then they had the Dato Lux, which was the moon phase. But having a big date and month, a moon phase, and the chronograph was only in this one, the 252. And that's a relatively rare watch. I've been looking for one for many, many years, and this is the only one I could come across.
Yeah, it's very gentlemanly, but also tells you like a lot of information at the same time. I mean, the moon phase is beautiful too. And this is like super sharp. I mean, I could cut myself on these angles.
Yeah. I bought it from a dealer, but apparently it came from a private collection to the dealer in Germany. And it was a Google search one Sunday evening, and I found it. Sent them an email. My hands were shaking. I hope you still have it. And they said, yes, we still have it.
So Angelus is not a brand that a lot of people hear about.
Yeah.
What about Angelus does it for you?
Angelus, the previous model line, so not the 250, but the 210 model line, had a watch very similar to the next watch we have in terms of case, size, and everything. That's a 37 millimeter watch that was used by the Hungarian Air Force back in the day. It was the Angelus 215. And that kind of put me on the model and then the brand. And then, of course, I expanded. I bought the 215, then I bought the 216, which is a time-only version, 217, which is the chronodato, so that has a triple date and the chronograph. And then I realized, oh, there was another caliber line, the 250, so I bought the 250 and so on.
So you're dedicated, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is at one point, somebody found a vintage Angelus catalog with all the different models, and that didn't help. Because it was just, oh yeah, and then they have this one. Oh, and this one. Oh, I never knew this existed. And I love the brand. I mean, it's a non-existent brand. Now it is again, but you know, it's a very different brand than what it used to be.
Yeah, revitalized and reincarnated in a different form.
In a different form. I have a good connection to the new brand. They're nice people, and they have some beautiful pieces. But sadly, the Angelus that we knew from those times, that's gone.
I'm going to reset this, and let's go from one deep cut to the next. What can you tell me about this guy here?
Yeah, so that one's an Excelsior Park Zinn. The interesting thing about it is that Zinn is a brand that you know from Frankfurt. It's a German brand outside of Frankfurt. However,
famous for their dive watches like the U50, for example.
Pool watches. They also supply watches to different German military groups. Also, I think first responders as well. So a bunch of cool watches. Again, super nice people, very, very friendly people. If you're in Frankfurt, pay them a visit. They'll be very happy. And so in the beginning, obviously, Zinn had no machinery, no knowledge, no nothing. So what they did is Helmut Zinn, the owner of Zinn at the time, who passed away a few years ago, that he bought Excelsior Park watches, hence the name Excelsior Park on the dial. Mm-hmm. And then he or they or even Excelsior Park printed Zinn on top of it. So it was an already probably done Excelsior Park. They just printed the name on it. So it basically became a double branded watch. And eventually you can find the same watch with only Zinn on the dial. So Excelsior Park is missing, and then...
So different eras of a co-branded watch with different logos reflecting those eras.
Yeah. It's just a cool piece because it's a double-branded chronograph. It's very large for its time. It's a 37 millimeter steel case, pump pushers, not something you see often. It comes on a Honey Wind.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Eric Wind.
Shout out to Eric Wind. Funny story, I was there visiting him, and I had the watch with me and on another strap, and he said, "This strap is ugly." And he put the Honey Wind on it.
It's a good combo, yeah.
Yeah, now it's on a nice Honey Wind.
And this is not your only Excelsior Park, right?
No, I have a few more, yes. I have a few others, but I try to get Excelsior Parks that are a bit different. So I have a Zenith Excelsior Park that was made for the Yugoslavian Air Force. I have this one. I have a new old stock, a small one. So you can find a lot, and I just don't want to hoard the same models, you know, over and over again. I'd like to have a bit of versatility, and so it's a good one.
So why should other chronograph enthusiasts pay attention to a brand like Excelsior Park versus buying another Speedmaster, another El Primero?
I mean, if you know chronographs, and if you've tried and operated other chronographs, and you have, right? And we have a bunch of other Lemania, whatever here. Start, stop, and reset this, and it tells you everything you need to know about Excelsior Park. It's a very different feel that you don't usually have with other movements. It's just a very smooth operation that the Excelsior Parks have.
So a lot of it just comes down to not only the look and the history, but just like the tactile feel of how the pushers push.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's there are people who are fans of Venus movements, or people who are fans of Lemanias. It's a great movement, not too easy to service. teeny tiny bit sensitive, but it's just, you don't really see a lot of them out there. Galley used to use Excelsior Park, as I said, Zenith, Certina even, so there's your connection.
And we have a Certina later on.
And we have a Certina later on, a Jura Perigo. So there's a lot of brands who use at one point Excelsior Park movements, and then you can find self-branded, so Excelsior Park branded, just like this one. What you can also, not this one, unfortunately, but what you can also recognize is the, some Excelsior Parks have the hooked 7. So at the bottom of the 7, there's a little hook. That's how you can recognize. If you see that hooked 7, the chances are there's usually an Excelsior Park inside.
Okay, okay. So yeah, they've been a brand that has been very behind the scenes for other
Absolutely.
more notable or more recognizable brands, and that's a draw for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a beautiful, simple, it's a very modern case, right? A 37 millimeter, something you can wear to this day. It doesn't, this feels, the Angelus feels small on my larger wrist. That one's not.
Yeah, definitely. It's 37 with a thinner bezel.
Yeah,
A lot more dial, more presence to it, some longer lugs.
Yeah, it's a cool contemporary size watch. I would say.
And you normally wear 40 millimeter stuff, so
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So, as I said,
or 42 millimeter Speedmaster.
that's the max.
This doesn't feel out of place for you.
No, that's the max. So 42 is my max. Minimum is probably this one at 33.
I want to ask a question I think a lot of people are wondering, which is, do you have any advice for people who want to get into vintage chronographs but are maybe concerned about repair costs?
Don't buy vintage. Yeah, so the ones that are really cool and I think they're really collectible are the column wheel chronographs, like this one. Most of them are. They usually come with quite the hefty service price if you have to service them. The invoice is going to be bad. There, of course, are other chronographs, later chronographs, like for example, the 861 Speedmaster is not a column wheel anymore. Or a 4-digit volume like 7730, 7754, whatever. Those are better. To me, however, and I think to chronograph fans, the 50s, 60s chronographs, that's like the golden era. That's when the column wheel chronographs were made. But there's nothing wrong with something from the 70s. It may be cheaper. It may not be as desired as a 50s or 60s chronograph, but it's also easier to repair. What I would, however, suggest, what we always say is do your research. Look up the brand, look up the caliber. Just because something looks good may not have a good caliber inside. So do your research and see what you're having.
And we'll hit a few along the way that offer that kind of vintage mystique and romance, but won't have quite the service bell that some of these like deep cuts.
Oh, these are deep cuts. Those are probably not so much.
Okay, so for a more popular choice, who's this guy?
This is a 321 Speedmaster from 1967. It's a 145012.
So why choose this one? This is not your only Speedmaster. We have another one coming up and there's others at home. Why'd you choose this one?
I had a transitional one from 68, which looks like a 321, but inside is already an 861. And I love that watch, and I love the modern Speedmasters, but every time I met collectors and they brought me their 321s, I was like, oh my God, this is the real deal. Funnily enough, if I put the transitional and this one next to each other, the difference is really not much, like a few details, few minor details. But to me, and I think that's the difference between a collector and the wearer, to me, knowing that there's a 321 inside versus an 861, it makes a difference.
It's a big box to check off if you're into Speedmasters and want to like really do it.
It's silly, or it may sound silly to some people. To me, I'm like, no, I really need the 321. Beautiful movement again. If you don't know what it is, just Google it, and even how the movement looks is just breathtaking. And so if you want, you can buy like a custom display case back and you can put it on your vintage Speedy so you can see the 321 movement in action. I have one. I don't have it on the watch, but I have one as well. And it's a classic. I mean, it's the most robust version of the 321, as in the 321 was the original movement in the Speedmaster, but those very early models I would be, reluctant to like wear them because they're super expensive. This is still affordable-ish.
When it comes to Speedmasters, are you team Hesalite or team Sapphire, and why?
I'm team Hesalite. Why? Because the original Speedmaster that went to space and eventually to the moon had Hesalite crystals. And so I also thought that, in my opinion, or to me, if I want a Speedmaster, I want it to be as close to the original as possible. That's when I went Hasselite. Nothing wrong with the Sapphire. If somebody wants that, if you want the security of the Sapphire sandwich, if you want to see the display case back or the movement through the display case back, perfect.
But you could also buy a separate display case back and pair it up with a Hasselite Crystal Speedmaster and kind of get a best of both worlds, let's say.
Which is what I did, yeah.
Now, another thing I want to ask you about is this is a flat link bracelet that you often see on Speedmasters. It's visually one of my favorites. I think it's very comfortable because the links are smaller, it wraps around, it catches light very well.
Yes.
But this is not OEM Omega bracelet, is it?
No, this one comes in a 1039 originally, reference 1039. However, this one's a Forstner bracelet. Why? Because I think Forstner does the best interpretation of the original Omega bracelet, the flat link bracelet. And I have to say the 1039s, even if they're repaired, and they take a lot of time, a lot of knowledge, and probably a lot of money to repair because of the expanding links, I would still not trust them. So I have one, I have its bracelet at home, but I wear it on the Forstner. And of course, if I want to put it on the original bracelet for a get-together or whatever, then I can do it. But I would not wear it on the original.
Do you recommend a Speedmaster for people with smaller wrists? What's your take?
Wear whatever you like.
Asking you a selfish question.
Wear whatever you like. If you think that the watch looks good on you and speaks to you, wear it. There are certain dimensions that just won't work. On the other hand, I'm used to, as you said, 40 millimeters watches or 42 millimeter watches, and I'm wearing a 38 chronograph, or 33 chronograph, sorry, sometimes, which could be extremely tiny, right? But I still wear it because I like it. I don't think it necessarily looks the best, but I like it. And same goes to the Speedmaster.
So yeah, if you love the watch enough, go for it, bend the rules a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
From Omega, we go forward in time to another brand that a lot of people know. And
Not
this,
much, but to the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, and what are we working with here?
It's a 6139 cycle, so it's basically probably the most famous model is the Pogue.
Yep. Which went to outer space.
Which went out of space, and they had the same movement. The interesting thing about the 6139 is 68, 69, 68, there's the race. Who will produce the first automatic chronograph movement, right? Yes. So there's 3 teams competing. There's Team Zenith.
3 sides of history.
Yeah, then there's Team everybody, so Breitling and Dubois Depras and, oh God even knows.
A conglomerate of companies that came together to compete in this race.
Exactly, and then there was Seiko.
Yep.
And so that's the movement that Seiko developed. Now, of course, the funny thing is between those 3 teams, we're still arguing who was first. I introduced the first one, but that was the first in production, but that was the first in Basel. One thing is for sure, the very first automatic chronograph movement made in Japan is this one.
The first one ever, the first one in Japan?
The first one in Japan. We don't know if it's the first one ever, I'm not going to get into that, but the first one in Japan for sure was 6139. And this one has the 6139 as well. It's not the Pogue. The Pogue has a different case shape, different colors, of course, but this is an equally cool chronograph. So the Speedmaster is 67. This is, as I said, 68, 69, and this specific model is from the 70s. So I think actually 1970. And that's the 6139 7070.
And what's the typical price point for something like this?
Below 1,000, I would say.
Wow.
Or maybe around 1,000. When I bought it years ago, I think you were talking 300, 400, 500 euros. Maybe now it's a bit more, but it's not much more. And it's a beautiful watch. It's a smaller case, so it's even comfortable for you compared to the Speedmaster. Yep. Also because it's kind of a not a C-shaped case, but kind of. Yep. Of course, it comes on a bracelet, so maybe on a strap it's better.
Yeah, even more compact.
It's a bit thick, of course, it's an automatic movement. The cool thing about it is with the 6139, how you change the date and the day is you push the crown, and depending on how deep you push the crown in, will either change the date, or if you push it deeper, then it will change.
Okay, so it's not you pull the crown out to different positions, you actually push the crown into different positions.
And if you pull the crown out, then you can set the time. And then, of course, the chronograph, as always, top starts, stops, button resets.
So for someone who's looking to get into vintage chronographs, this is a great option because it's one of the first automatic chronographs. It's a part of Seiko history. It's cheaper in terms of purchase price and probably cheaper to maintain as well because there's a lot of Seiko chronographs floating around. So as far as parts availability and things like that, it was made to be repaired fairly easily.
Not only that, but there are tons of options for 6139s, and then the bigger version is 6138. So it's also a chronograph with 2 subdials, a 12 and a 6. So either 6139 or 6138, great options. I mean, here you can see there's only one subdial at the 6 o'clock. You can find them in different case shapes, different colors, and maybe different price points, but for the most part, they're much cheaper than, let's say, these ones here.
Yeah, definitely approachable. We have a more expensive one later on, but I want to touch real quick to this Certina right here with this like kind of burgundy, like root beer-ish bezel thing.
The interesting thing about this watch is not necessarily what's on the dial, but also what's inside. For those of you who know chronographs, if you see this shape and you see the bezel, you know what it is. It's an Eterna, because it looks just like an Eterna. Well, it's not. And the reason it's not is because this was made as a special order for the Hungarian Air Force in the 70s for the helicopter pilots. In 1974, got these as navigation tools, as you would have it back in the day. So basically everything is from Eterna, but the movement and the dial. In some cases, you still have the Eterna logo in the middle of the crystal. And if you open the case back where it says Eterna, it's like machined out and it's stamped over with Certina. So basically Eterna delivered the case, the crystal and everything. There's a Valjoux 72 in it, 728.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So normally in Eternas you have 726s, this one is a 728. And of course it's Certina on the dial, Chronolympic on the dial, but it's not a Chronolympic. And funnily enough, it's a Tashi bezel because of the pilot connection. But because the Eterna ones are 60-minute or 60-second bezels, you can also turn it.
Oh, it's a rotating bezel.
Yeah, which is not good for a tachymeter because it should be stationary.
Yeah, not something you would want to bump while you're using it.
No, exactly.
So you can actually find these with engravings in the crystal, you said?
Yeah, you can. So the original, some of them have the like you have Omega logos in the center of the Omega crystals. Here you would have the 5 dots, which is Eterna's logo in some of the cases, yeah.
And this hits close to home for you as well.
Yeah.
Literally speaking, because you are
Yeah.
a proud Hungarian and this is a Hungarian Air Force relic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for the helicopter pilots.
So from a deep cut, we go to something a little more recognizable, but a variation on the recognizable, let's say.
That's the only modern one in the collection. So we get 40s, 60s, 60s, 70s, and then this is the 2017. This is the Speedy Tuesday one, aka the Alaska Project, which was a collaboration between Omega and Fratello watches. And I was lucky enough to be part of the team already back then, and especially when this watch was designed. And of course, it was a huge, I guess, milestone, not only for us at Fratello, but also for the watch community. Having worked with Omega was a great experience. They're lovely people, it was super easy. And the result is something that I think you don't really see every day. There's a lot of Speedmasters, a lot of limited editions on the market. Nothing is quite like this one.
Let's talk about some details. What sets this watch apart from your standard Speedmaster?
Basically everything, right? So if you look at the case, for example, it's a brushed case versus a polished that you have on a Speedmaster. So that's different. The crown is different because it's also brushed. Same with the pushers. The dial, the handset, they're also custom for this watch. The case back is custom. You have radial, because it's the radial numerals on the dial. Of course, you have the Alaska Project, the limited edition number. It was 2012 pieces, because 2012 was the year that Speedy Tuesday was established or founded, however you want to call it. And so, yeah, this is one of 2012 pieces ever made.
And of course, you had the subdials as well that separated it.
Yes, you can see that the subdials, they all
are luminous. Okay, so a reverse painted dial that is also luminous as well.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite detail is going to be the brush case. I feel like it catches the light in a little bit softer way. It makes it feel more tool watch-ish, let's say, and any scratches that you get are going to be less prominent than they would be on the polished Speedmaster.
It definitely looks more like a military timepiece than a regular Speedmaster.
And I think it helps it wear a little bit smaller. You have the black dial, which visually shrinks the watch a little bit, and the case is less reflective, so it doesn't feel quite as big just when you're looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a watch that has not been done since or before. You know, they did, as I said, a lot of limited editions, a lot of different models, but the brushed case was only, as far as I remember, was only ever done on the Speedy Tuesday one. Like, even the Speedy Tuesday 2, which came after that, was the Ultraman. It was a much more, I guess, classic Speedmaster look with the brushed and polished case, of course, with a few different elements. But this was groundbreaking at the time.
And anyone who is a Speedmaster fan and on social media will recognize hashtag Speedy Tuesday as kind of a collective once-a-week event to post your Speedmaster that has really taken off since.
On a Tuesday, exactly.
On a Tuesday. So this, you could say, is a Speedmaster designed by Speedmaster enthusiasts for Speedmaster enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing. Obviously, Rolex is never going to take their customers into account, let's say.
Never say never.
I'm going to say it. They're never going to do that.
Okay.
Omega is a brand that, in a way, opened the door for collectors to come in and gave them feedback and took the feedback. And then now we have it in a tangible product, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So now that we have our SITS watches on the table, can we get a rundown of the movements that we have in each of these?
So we have an Angelus in-house movement, 252. Then we have an Excelsior Park, also in-house movement. Then we have a 321 Lemania movement, or a 321 Omega based on a Lemania. Then we have a 1639 Psycho. We have a 728 Valjoux, and then another version of the 321, this time the 1861 Omega, again based on the same Lemania.
General question for you. Lemania, Valjoux, what's your pick?
I probably have more Lemania than Valjoux, but I understand that Valjoux has a higher rank, I guess, in vintage chronographs because of the Daytona.
Yep, the Valjoux 72, of course, being most famous in Paul Newman Daytonas, for example. You also have the 7750, which is more of like a workhorse Valjoux movement that you see in some Tudors and things like that.
And the 72 is a hand wound, the 7750 is an automatic, it's a later movement. And of course, there are other ones like Venus movements we haven't talked about that are also really great, the 175, for example. So there's quite a lot. I like Lemania, I like them because they're not only in Omegas, they're also in Tissot's, they're also in Lemania named or Lemania branded watches. But the Valjoux 72 is probably the king of vintage chronograph movements because of the Daytona.
And if you had to give advice to someone who wants to get into chronographs, especially vintage chronographs, what are some general points to keep in mind, and where would you recommend they start?
Start with something that you're comfortable with in terms of the price. You don't necessarily have to start with column wheels. Let's start with a 4-digit Lemania, like a 7730 or 7750, as you said. Read a lot, learn a lot, understand what watch has which movement. The general rule is always do your research before buy anything. And there are so many great resources out there, so many podcasts, articles, forum posts. There's a book by Sebastian Chamontin and Joel Penson called Chronographs for Collectors. That's actually a great starting point. And yeah, in general, just go with what you like. Don't go with something that other people want. Just do your research. Put those 4 or 5 watches on your bookmarks or Pinterest or whatever, and then just funnel it down to the one that you love and go for that one.
And you certainly have options, including the ones that we have on this table. Vintage Seiko, historically important, approachably priced, and even some vintage Speedies are, something you could have for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And also maybe not as unreasonable as you might expect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, for Valjoux 72, for example, if you want a Benra Sky Chief, it's probably a cheaper alternative, or even a Certina Chrono Olympic is a cheaper alternative to the Valjoux 72. You don't have to go, Daytona for 30,000. You can go for Benras, which is like probably 2,000-ish.
Yeah, plenty of beautiful Hoyers out there.
Not to mention those.
Some El Primeros. I mean, there's a lot to choose from.
Caliber 11 Hoyers, Caliber 12 Hoyers. As you said, a lot to choose from.
Last question for you. What's next?
I'm not sure. I think I'm pretty happy with what I have.
You don't need like another military one.
I always need another one, but
Speedmaster.
I always need another one, but I don't need any. There are some models that I'd like to get, mostly from Angelus. Some other chronographs, they don't have in-house movements anymore. One of them is the medical, I think, which has a Valjoux 23 inside. I would like to have one of those, for example. Speedies, maybe an Ed White. I'd like to have an Ed White, but it absolutely doesn't make sense because I have 4 of the same watches or even more. But again, we're not buying them because they make sense, right?
Yeah. Okay, last question. Grail chronograph.
Oh, Patek 3970.
Why?
Because the 3970 has everything that you want in a chronograph and then some. And it's a beautiful design. It's Patek, so obviously the top of the line. It's Le Mans based.
Yep.
Movement, just like the Omegas. It's really, the watch is just beautiful. It's a smaller case. The 39 is a smaller one. The 59 is the modern version, bigger. It reminds me of the Chronodato looks, right? On a you could say much more sophisticated or just different iteration.
You would do a Patek chronograph over Daytona?
Probably.
Saying all prices the same?
Probably 3970. Yeah, over Daytona for sure.
There you have it. Balazs Ferenczi, chronograph obsessed watch collector, although there is more.
Thomas Hendricks,
Normal guy.
normal guy with funky watches.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.